everyone, my name is Sam and thanks for checking out this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and put the little notifications bell click thing too. And give the video a thumbs up or thumbs down if you like it, if you hate it, whatever. And feel free to actually participate in the comment section. I've actually had like a ton of people well, more than I thought I would ever have, commenting in the comment section, which I always love seeing and reading them, so yeah. This week was actually a pretty slow reading week for me. I had also started Furyborn by Claire Legrand. I just didn't get to it, and I probably won't get to finish it next week either, just because I have so much outreach work that I have to do for work. I'm traveling, so I'll probably be pretty stuck to whatever audiobooks I get done, because driving all over Alberta is tiring, so I don't know how much energy I'll have when I actually get to the places and I'm done work. So hopefully the week after, if I get that. This week, though, I still managed to finish 4 books, and 2 of them were rereads, kind of, and I'll kind of explain those as I go through. But let's just jump into them. So the first book that I read this week, which is kind of a reread, was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I actually read an arc of this, and I did a kind of standalone review video for it as well. But this is the finished copy, which is quite a few, I think I want to say 60 or so pages shorter than the arc. But, I mean, I legitimately can't figure out exactly what was taken out. It was clearly nothing significant because I legitimately still love this book as much as I did when I read the arc. So if you somehow haven't heard of this book, this is a debut work by author Tomi Adeyemi. She got a 7-figure book deal for this, what is going to be a trilogy, and the film rights were optioned off before the book was even published. So there's a lot of hype put behind this book, and in my opinion, it is totally deserved. I absolutely loved this book. I don't think the overall general plot was anything super unique. However, the settings were really cool. The writing, I loved her writing. I loved the characters. I loved getting to experience some influences of a different culture. And I like at the end too, Tomi Adeyemi kind of points out that this, the thoughts behind this are kind of her way of fighting back for, Black Lives Matter and a lot of African American kids. Well, not even just kids, but just African Americans in general, especially in the United States right now. There's so much in the news of, young black kids getting killed, and unfortunately a lot of the time by police officers. So it was her kind of way to fight back against that. And you can see kind of remnants of that, but it's also got influences from Avatar, from what I understand. I've never actually read Avatar, but apparently it's got, or watched either of them really, but apparently it's got influences of that. And it's just so much fun. The general plot is our main character, Zeely, is the daughter of her mother was a Reaper, which is one of the powers that they had, of the Magi here. And her mother was killed when there was kind of a massive put down and suppression and removal of people with powers. And the king who did that is still in, power, and he feels like he was wronged, and this was his way of fixing things, and he's just kind of gotten way out of hand, and he's suppressing Zeely, who does have powers, but they're dormant because they've removed the items that give them their actual powers. So Zeely is poor with her father and brother, and to pay the taxes because she is who she is, she goes to the market to sell something so that they have enough money, and there she helps someone who's frantically trying to escape the city, and we meet, through this entire event, we meet the crown prince. Is it the crown prince? The king of the suppressive king's son, who is the heir, and his daughter. And there's lots of adventures. We go through a bunch of different settings. There's a pirate ship and an arena battle, and there's just so much going on. There's a village where you do celebrations, and then there's traveling, there's a temple. There's just so much fun going on. I loved the writing. The romance was, there's 2 heavy romances in here. One of them I super love. The other one, I didn't love them, but I feel like they were written not for us to love them, but for that to come back. So I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for that to pop up in the 2nd or 3rd book. I just have an inkling that it's going to happen. And with the way that YA books, after everything that happens in this book, because it is YA and adventure, people die in this book. People don't tend to stay dead in YA. So I'm just keeping that in the back of my head for this going forward. But I loved the setting. She did a really good job of painting all these different places that we were going to visiting. I was panting when there was a race chase in here going through a market. I was panting along with the book. And I got to the end and texted my friend Amanda. I was like, wait, what does this ending mean? What, did I misread something? Or is this, and we both just like have a bunch of random theories now. We don't know what the heck's going to happen. And it's infuriating. So we just have to wait for the second book, I guess. But yeah, so 5 out of 5 stars. Still, like, massively in love with this book, and I love the cover. They did a beautiful job on the underdust jacket too. I know there was, I think, a Barnes & Noble edition where the sleeves were, or the sides pages were red or something like that. I don't know. There's just beautiful editions out there. Then I read Akatowicz by Nnedi Okorafor. I don't think I'm saying that right. I apologize. I'm like the whitest person in the world. I can't pronounce anything, apparently. This is technically, I guess, a middle grade YA, kind of straddles that border, and I find a lot of books that do that are either just like too juvenile for me, or when I read them, I'm like, how is this even classified as a middle grade? It's a YA. But this one was actually, it did a really good job of straddling that border. So this book has been kind of described in a couple different places as like Harry Potter set in Nigeria. I think there were, like, some influences. I feel like we just associate anything to do with, like, anything that happens in Harry Potter. Even if it's in a different book and Harry Potter wasn't the first one to do it, we're just like, that's like Harry Potter. But there were some scenes that made me think of, like, Hogsmeade Village, or just, like, a couple, or, like, Diagon Alley. Just going to different places in Harry Potter, not necessarily, like, the school itself, but I feel like there were some parts that did give me some Harry Potter feels and vibes. So our main character, Sunny, is of Nigerian descent. She was actually born in New York, and then her family moved back to Nigeria, which is where she's living now. So she's kind of an outcast in that sense, but she's also albino as well. So she says, you know, she kind of sticks out, and she gets the feeling from her parents as well. Like, her dad especially didn't necessarily want a daughter. So she's kind of in this weird, doesn't fit in anywhere. And it can be really hard, especially when you're, you know, preteen age. And at the same time, there is a kind of serial murderer, assaulter going around the area that kids keep showing up either like disfigured or dead or all this kind of stuff. So everyone's kind of on high alert. While this is all going on, Sunny finds out that she has some powers, and she meets a ragtag group of friends, and she finds out she's got some family secrets that her parents aren't telling her about, and she has to be going to school in like the mortal world as well as in the in the magical world, and she has a very strong personality, and she's very used to having to stick up for herself just because she does stick out. So she has to try and balance all of these rules and worlds, and yeah, lots of reveals and all that kind of stuff. Loved the writing. It had such a good flow. My only negative, like, thing that I didn't totally love was sometimes I felt the dialogue was very formal or flat. It just didn't quite flow the way I was thinking it would, especially for kids this age. But other than that, totally loved it. I love the cover change that they did actually for this series, the first one. It's also really cool too. I think it appealed more to the middle grade aspect, but this one I think is more YA. And I love like the grasshopper will make sense when you're reading this book. And I love like the details of like, it's just, it does a very good job of representing our main character, Sunny. And I'm definitely going to be picking up the sequel. I think I ended up giving this like 4 or 4.5 out of 5 stars. Really, really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend it. It's actually it was released a couple of years ago, actually. But I would really highly recommend it. It's got some really fun influences. It's a different setting that I often don't get the chance to read, and yeah, I just really like this book. Then I finally read Half Bad by Sally Green. I think I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was the writing, I think, is what really kind of, like, it was just very different. Not the actual, like, author's writing, just how it is written itself. There is our main character, Nathan, and he just, the way this person, like, the tenses he talks in, he's telling you how, like, he's observing things and telling you how, and then she did this, and then so it's just a little bit odd. I hadn't read a book kind of like that in quite a long time. But that being said, I'm quite intrigued by, like, the things going on in the background of this book. I'm not totally sure how all the books are set up. I think they all give a different perspective. I think someone told me that. So I'm very curious to see if we're going to get to know more about that as this goes on. But our main character, Nathan, it's basically like he's a half mix. He's half, his dad is like a notorious black witch. He reminds me a little bit of like Voldemort, kind of serious situation. And then his mother was a white witch, but she ended up killing herself when he was quite young because he looks a lot like his father, who is the disgraced black witch. And black witches are, you know, they don't want them, they're not good, so the government of this world where the white witches are essentially trying to continuously adjust laws as he grows up in order to, like, manipulate, suppress, and eventually get rid of him. And he gets abused by, like, basically everyone. That's really what I had a hard time with this book reading. Not only the tenses, but you just get to have to read about him being, like, physically assaulted and abused an awful lot. And it's difficult to, like, intake that, especially when he's telling you how it feels when it happens to him, kind of thing. So there was a couple times where I had to put the book down for a couple minutes just because I don't like reading about that kind of stuff. He's got kind of like a little bit of a romance going on, but along the way he keeps finding like these kind of like Easter eggs that have been left by his parents or by his just other helpers to kind of help him get along to survive and get by that government. And there's lots of things going on in the background that government is hiding and all that kind of stuff. And there's this kind of question of, is his dad actually bad? Because the people who saying he is bad is also the people that are abusing him. So he's also had people that are not part of that government saying the opposite of what the government's saying. So there's lots of questions of like exactly who is good, who is bad, what do we classify as good or bad? Do actions without any context change that? So lots of stuff going on. I'm definitely going to read the sequel. I don't know when, but I am quite curious. Like the geopolitics and all that kind of stuff going on. I think it was just like the tense that it was written in totally threw me. It could have been the same story and the same writer and just written it as like an observing person or something like that and could have totally changed it and maybe upgraded it a little bit. But for me, 3.5 stars. And the last book that I finished this week was Ferris by Marissa Meyer. This is a reread. However, it's a reread from I think I read this the first time in like between first and second year grad school, so it's been like 3 or 4 years. Honestly did not remember a single thing that happened in this, so I don't know that I would really consider it a reread. But this is the novella that technically is between Cress and Winter. However, I just wanted to read this before I wanted to pick up Cress for some reason. I don't know why. And it's not like a big spoiler. I mean, like, I know generally what happens, even though I have no memory of the stuff. I know what happens in Cress and Winter and all that stuff because I've read it before. So, no harm, no foul, right? This is the story of Levana, who is our main villain who lives up on the moon. And I love stories of finding out exactly how people are as messed up as they are, that they do these really messed up, like morally questionable, just bad actions. And it's always interesting. I always find it so interesting to find out how people justify it in their mind or what resulted in them not even having to justify doing things. And this was a good one. I find it sometimes, especially when there's female villains, that a lot of it is just like, oh, she was betrayed by a lover and now she hates all of the people of her lover. And there is some romance in this, but she's messed up from the beginning. And I don't know if it's her family structure or whatever, but this book starts where we meet Levana right after her parents have been killed. And we find out, though, during this book that, like, her sister was allowed to abuse her. So this is not, like, a normal, stable home to begin with. And her sister takes over as ruler, but her sister is also a very messed up person. And you kind of feel a little bit of pity for her, but she's also, the way she thinks and talks, she's messed up by this point already. And then she starts looking for love, almost like thinking that will fix everything, and it doesn't. And then she just goes full-blown to Levana that we know. And there's it coordinates with a lot of, like, the reveals that happen in Cinder and Scarlet and Cress, and kind of Winter too. So I just love getting, like, the perspective. They're just so messed up. I could never think of how those people get that way. Same with, like, all those, like, evil Rumpelstiltskin stories and all that stuff from Once Upon a Time. Love that we get those backstories and all that stuff. So yeah, of the Lunar Chronicles, it's maybe my least favorite, but that being said, it's still 5 out of 5 stars. I love all of the Lunar Chronicles, and I just love that they gave us that perspective in that story because she is a very big villain, and I don't think it really redeems her, it just explains her. So those are all of the books that I read this week. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. Also, let me know what you read this week. I'd love to know if there's a book that's missing on my TBR that I need to get to ASAP, or if we've read a book in court like that's similar and we can fangirl together or hate on it together. Love doing that too. Make sure to check the description box down below for links to all of the books as well as links to my social media. If you follow me, I will follow you back.